It's the Infectious Groove Podcast, part of the Odd Pods Media Network. Recorded from Detroit, Michigan, and Jacksonville, Florida. The Infectious Groove Podcast is your source for jammy jams, album reviews, and the best in-depth music discussion. Thanks for joining us. Now here are your hosts.
Well, hello there. My name is Russ, and this is the latest episode of the Infectious Groove Podcast. And a couple of things have occurred in trying to bring this episode to you. One of which was our friend Dayton over at the Docking Bay Podcast was gracious enough to actually step in at the last minute to help out with this episode because I made a scheduling error and did not have any guests lined up for this particular episode. And then after Dayton was nice enough to line up his schedule with ours, then his technology at his house was not being cooperative with him, and we tried to start this episode a couple of times, and his internet just would not hold up. But I do want to say thank you very much for volunteering to help us out, and I'm really sorry about your technical issues and whatnot, but we will get Dayton back on the show very shortly, probably just in another couple of weeks. I will find a way to work him in, because if you haven't listened to his podcast, the Docking Bay Podcast, you definitely should. They cover a lot more than what we cover. We cover all music here, obviously, but they also cover a lot of movies and pop culture and whatnot. So that is a great listen, and you'll hear more from Dayton on our show very soon. Having said that, it's not going to be just me this week, because if you're in the podcasting community, I highly recommend finding you a podcaster to get engaged to. Because then if you need someone on your program at the very last second, what you can do is go out to the couch and say, hey, honey, will you join me on this week's episode of the show?
I paused Animal Crossing for this.
Yeah, she did. Everybody, that voice right there is Lauren from the Beard Al Podcast, who you've probably heard their promo run on our show a bunch. You've heard her on our show 2 or 3 times. Oh, I just realized you're getting the jump on your brother here.
I am. Look at that.
Yeah, at the last second now. Just that's one thing John doesn't have. I don't live with John.
No, you don't.
Yeah. So that voice is my beautiful and lovely fiance, Lauren from the Beard Al Podcast. She is going to jump in and help out with this episode tonight, which I think is awesome. Because what's interesting about this particular cover battle that we're going to do for our main topic is I feel like this requires a little more nuanced discussion than maybe some do, because there's a lot of similarities between these covers, but there's a lot of subtle differences as well. Okay. So that is why I initially was like, oh, I'll get Dayton from the Docking Bay show. And then I was fortunate enough to say, okay, well, this is great because my fiance can speak with the same amount of subtlety that needs to be discussed with. So hooray for me.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So having said that, in the second half of the program, we are going to get into a totally epic cover battle for the song Dancin' in the Moonlight, the King Harvest original versus the Toploader cover that became famous not too long ago. But before we get to all of that, we have a couple of segments to get through.
Feedback, John.
Don't worry about that. Right. There's rock and roll be without feedback.
Keeping it in the family, our first piece of feedback comes from David, who happens to be the father of the 2 hosts of the Beard Al Podcast. And regarding our review of Plastic Beaches by Gorillaz, David wrote in and said, the cover art on this record is beautiful. It reminds me of the cover art for Yes, which I agree with.
Yeah.
He then goes on to say, I will put on this album as I'm writing this weekend and let you know if it works out for me, because we labored that point that it was a great background / concentration music. Seth has given us more than a bit of good feedback on the show over time, and he's given us 3 different pieces of feedback for the last couple of episodes that we did, and we're going to be able to tell a story with Seth's feedback during this one. So,
I love a good story.
It's going to be good. Seth writes in regarding this ongoing discussion regarding what this show has or has not said about Beyonce. Seth writes in and says, I have beef with Russ and Dad Narok. I don't require people to be a fan of Beyonce. When you say she's overrated, that is crossing a line. Maybe we can discuss this in a few weeks in my return as a guest host. That's the first part. We're going to circle back to that in a little bit. Regarding our episode of how parenting has changed your listening habits or how you plan to parent with music, Seth goes on to say, as someone with no kids, I can only speak from my experience as a kid. The one band I remember my parents wouldn't let me listen to was Nirvana or watch Smells Like Teen Spirit video. Now Nirvana is one of my favorites. Nice try, parents. And that's funny that Seth mentioned that, because I didn't even mention in that episode that the one thing that I can remember is when Ozzy's solo career started. like Biting the Heads Off of Bats, Mr. Crowley, Flying High Again, that era of
Yeah.
Ozzy. My parents were like, absolutely not. And I was like, oh, but yes, though. Like, oh, solely because they said no. Like, I became a huge Ozzy fan just because my parents told me no.
That's really interesting. And you've got me racking my brain now. I don't think I have anything like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I feel like your parents were probably, and my parents I should say I didn't grow up like super sheltered. My parents weren't like, you can't listen to anything, but like Ozzy was like the thing. And in my parents' defense, like you talk about grandpas from a different time. If you look at the cover of Diary of a Madman, Ozzy Osbourne's like bathed in blood on that cover, like either having killed or just gonna kill someone. And you could see parents being like, no,
Yeah.
you know, so, but I was like, oh, well, now I have to listen to all of that, you know. Aaron from I Had to Say It writes in and says, for the record, as a parent myself of a grown-ass adult, mumble rap is utter garbage, which is, I mentioned that I will not in any way. We were talking about artists that you got into because of your kids. And I said that Panic of the Disco is an artist that I really didn't care about at all until my son got into him. And I said, really, that's the only thing my son listens to that I couldn't see myself getting into is mumble rap because it's awful.
Yeah. Well, yes, it is.
That's true.
I mumbled my way through that answer.
You did. Nick Macchiato writes in and says, so I have 2 girls, 9 and 6. We are a huge music listening household. I do find it trending towards more female-fronted artists, as I believe is a result of having daughters. As far as content, I stray away from the more sexual content, but I'm okay with describing songs describing emotions, difficulties, experiences, because I've relayed to them even through the art. It's great to have that therapy and taking away negative feelings toward the therapy that some folks have. I want them to be able to express themselves, and music is a great way to do that, which I totally agree with. And I touched on that a little bit too with what I was talking about regarding like Eminem. Like at the point where I started letting my son listen to Eminem was when I was explaining to him the hows and whys of the songs. Not just like, oh, isn't it funny that he said this, that, or the other thing, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Explaining it is part of it. And just one thing I loved about his feedback there about the female artist and kind of leaning towards that, I think that's awesome. And it's really smart.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think that it's nice that we have such a wide variety to look at now because, and again, this makes me an old, but when I was a kid, as far as women who knew what they were doing and were either gaming the system, I'm looking at you, Dolly Parton, or just stood up against everything, I'm looking at you, Loretta Lynn, we really only had like those 2 examples and everybody else was over-sexualized, you know? So like, I bet it would have been harder to find someone to look up to if you were raising a daughter then than now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just have to throw Stevie Nicks into it because she did make a point of kind of staying as covered up as possible. And she said that. She goes, I can be just as sexy in layers of chiffon as I can with nothing on.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I hear that.
I think it's cool.
We have more feedback from Seth.
Oh, God.
Seth writes in, wait, I just reread in my beef lies with Michelle, not Russ and Dad in Iraq. So, because when that tweet came in, I was like, no, but I didn't say that though.
I was very confused by that tweet as well.
Yeah. So I'm excited and humbled that Seth would write in and correct that last tweet.
He took his beef back.
He did, as a matter of fact. Not with everybody. It's still he described his beef with Michelle as well done.
Oh, that's the worst beef.
That is the worst beef. Jamie Porter writes in and says, great episode as always. Great topic and conversation. My son was 18 months when he said his first swear word. We were sitting in bed watching TV and he dropped the remote behind the bed and exclaimed, oh shit. I was equal parts mortified that he was swearing already and also proud that he used it in the proper context. Beware that your baby is always listening. Russ, your hatred of simply having a wonderful Christmas time is well warranted. There are 2 that I hate more than that though, and they're in no particular order. I'm getting nothing for Christmas and Santa Baby for me are the absolute worst. And I don't think I can disagree with that. They're not very good.
I like Santa Baby.
I guess it depends on who's singing it. I've heard a couple of versions that I like.
Yeah.
Garrett writes in and says, I judge my kids' music on individual basis. It seems to work well for me. I'd rather them listen to the actual stuff than the kids' pop crap. So Garrett is firmly against kids' bop.
He has a beef with kids' bop.
Yeah, there's just all sorts of beef going around in this episode. So anyways, if you do want to leave us feedback, you can always do so. You can do like Seth and write us a string of tweets, whether they're whether you meant what you said or not. You can call us at 313-364-9899. You can leave a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or go over to our YouTube channel. Moving right along. Our jammies. My Jamie Jams for this week are kind of unique in a little bit of a way. One thing, and you're obviously my co-host this week, Lauren, is going to know this for sure. I got myself on a Talking Heads kick because they're so good.
You sure did.
Yeah, the Talking Heads are so good, though.
They are.
And like when I was a kid, the very first song that I ever heard by the Talking Heads was Burn It Down the House. And it, to me, sounded like nothing else that I had heard at the time. And then it took me a long time to open myself up to a lot more Talking Heads. And now it's like I can't get enough of like Take Me to the River and She Was. I mean, they're monster songs. They're just
so good.
Yeah, so a lot of Talking Heads for me this week. Faith No More is another band that I dug into again, and this is actually, again, a thing from the podcasting community. We went on the BFYTW show, and they were asking what songs help you calm down, like when you're stressed out, like through holiday stress or whatever, and everybody started naming off really like happy-go-lucky songs that like would change your mood. And for me, for whatever reason, when I get in that type of mood, it's better for me to get all the aggression out through metal. And so I was talking about the song Midlife Crisis by Faith No More and how aggressive it is. And by the end of that song, I literally feel like I have a weight lifted off my shoulder. But that ended up with me listening to like Falling to Pieces, Epic, Last Cup of Sorrow, like just a bunch of other great Faith No More songs. So two bands that probably couldn't be more different, but are both on the way outskirts of what, if you consider Talking Heads to be pop music, it's way on the outskirts of pop music. And same with Faith No More. If you consider Faith No More to be rock, it's way on the outskirts of rock. It's not what most people would consider common rock and roll. So having said that, those were my Jammy Jams. What were your Jammy Jams this week?
Oh, gosh. Well, it is the holiday season, and I'm going to take this opportunity to gift your playlist listeners with the 2 Weird Al Christmas songs because I feel like they need to be on there, and, your listeners need to hear them. So we've got Christmas at Ground Zero, which is fabulous. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I don't need to go on too much about it.
I think Christmas at Ground Zero is criminally underrated. It is. So the other one that you're going to mention is The Night Santa Went Crazy. Spoilers. And The Night Santa Went Crazy, you could never put on at a Halloween party because it's so crystal clear the lyrics are, and it's not a Christmas song, right? Christmas at Ground Zero, I maintain you could put on any Christmas playlist. Like you could just put it on in Target, and no one would know what was being said unless they listened really close.
Absolutely. And case in point to that, I did this song at karaoke last week, and I don't think anybody really got it.
Yeah, there was like, whenever you do Weird Al at all, there's always that like one chuckle when someone realizes what you're doing. And there was like one of those through the whole song. And I think everybody else was just like, oh, this is just a regular Christmas song.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
I got away with it.
Yeah. So just the 2 Weird Al songs, that's totally fine if so for your Jammy Jams.
I'm going to throw one more in there, mostly because I listened to it 3 times today. It's by Haim, The Steps. I loved this song when it came out. It's off their most recent album from 2020, and oh my gosh, it is such a jam. I'm kind of obsessed with it. Right
on. I am really light on that band, and not like I don't like them, Seth. Not that I don't like them. I just have never listened to much of them at all. But everybody who I've ever known who's listened to Haim loves what they've heard.
Yeah.
So it's one of those bands that I should definitely get into.
You more. Definitely should. And I will tell you that with Haim, their live performances are completely different than what you get on the record. Their live performances are like way more hard, like rock kind of stuff. So yeah.
Good. All right. Well, those are our Jammy Jams this week. So you'll have a smattering of songs from Faith No More and Talking Heads from me. You have a couple of Weird Al Christmas classics and a Haim cut from Lauren. And the way that you can hear all of that easily is to follow our Spotify playlist on Spotify.
Is that where it is?
Yeah, that's right where it is. And we will have every Monday whatever songs are discussed on this episode. So when you're hearing this episode, that same day, you can hear all of our songs from those 2, from our Jammy Jams rather, on the Spotify playlist. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Lauren and I are going to talk through the latest in our totally epic cover battles. It's going to be the song Dancing in the Moonlight, the original version by King Harvest up against the more recent cover by the band Toploader. You're listening to the Infectious Groove Podcast on the Odd Pods Media Network.
Hey, you there. We've got a question for you. Are you tired of clickbait stories and the loudest voices driving discussions in culture and entertainment?
If so, I'm Dylan.
I'm Kendall.
And I'm Corey.
And we host the podcast From the Middle. We're middle-class guys living in the middle of America, in the middle chapters of our lives with points of view somewhere in the middle.
We take a more reasonable and centrist approach in our discussions covering genres like comedy, culture, entertainment, and interviews, with really interesting folks like business owners, comic creators, doctors, news anchors, New York Times best-selling illustrators, professional stand-up comics, and more. We really value a relaxed and conversational podcast, one that we hope is so fun and laid back, you'll forget you're not actually hanging out with us.
So search at From the Mid Pod, just like it sounds, or check us out everywhere you can find podcasts.
Hi, I'm Tina Jaramillo.
And I'm Hillary Doherty.
And we host the Muck Podcast, where we discuss the dark and sometimes weird true stories in American politics.
Hey, Tina, did you know that Elvis crashed the Nixon White House for the sole purpose of getting a DEA badge, and it worked?
What? Or how a gun control advocate senator out of California engaged in gun trafficking with notorious gang leader Shrimp Boy?
Shrimp Boy, I remember him. Okay, so, we cover all of that and more from maladies, madness, mischief, and murder in U.S. politics.
And we also host a bi-weekly interview segment called Lil Muck.
We interview politicians, journalists, activists, and others who share their experiences in politics.
Find the Muck Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and check us out on social media at the Muck Podcast.
We are back. My name is Russ, the usual host of the Infectious Groove Podcast. And along with me this week, pinch hitting, is Lauren from the Beard Owl Podcast, which we greatly appreciate. Thank you so much, Lauren.
You're welcome. I don't know how my villagers on Animal Crossing feel about being left alone this long, but it's fine.
It is what it is.
I know, they'll live.
Yeah, they're going to have to deal with it. Their little digital hearts are going to have to get over this. But Lauren is stepping in place of our friend Dayton from the Docking Bay 77 podcast, who I promise we will circle back around to once he has his internet issues figured out. And if you have a chance in the meantime, definitely go check out his podcast, Docking Bay 77. If you like what we're doing here, if you also like movies and other pop culture things, you definitely want to go ahead and check out his show. And he will be returning to our show here over the next month sometime. So we will have him come back. But we are exceptionally excited that we are in a position where I was able to go out to the other room and say, oh, there's a podcaster right there.
That's why you proposed to me, right?
That's
Just
100%
to have somebody,
why.
yeah.
Yeah, that is exactly the reason. So the main topic for this episode is a totally epic cover battle. And we are going to do this for the song Dancin' in the Moonlight, which I feel like most people either know one version or the other of this. I don't think that most people have heard both versions, which I think is a little odd. Most of the time when we do these cover battles, people have at least heard both versions. Would you say that? Let me say this. Had you heard the Toploader version of Dancing in the Moonlight before I played it for you?
I had not.
You had not. Okay. And just so everyone knows, she didn't hear it 5 minutes ago. You've heard it for
quite some time.
a while now. So having said that, let me break down some things regarding both of the versions of the song. King Harvest did the original version of Dancing in the Moonlight. It was written by a gentleman named Sherman Kelly in 1969 for the band Bafalongo, which I love the name of.
That is a great name.
That is a great name. But what's interesting about this is he was assaulted by a gang and wrote the song while he was recovering because he, and this is a direct quote, envisioned an alternate reality and the dream of peaceful and joyful celebration of life.
That's a very 1969 thing to say.
And this person's recovering from being beaten by a gang.
Yeah.
And then writes this song.
He was in a good headspace.
Oh, for sure. But after that, it was released by King Harvest in 1972 as a single. It reached number 5 in Canada and number 13 in the U.S. Years later, the band Toploader, an English band, released it in February of 2000. It was the third single from their debut album. That version went up to number 19 in the UK, but then it was re-released later in the same year and made it all the way up to number 7, and it reached the top 20 in tons of countries around the world. So it wasn't quite as big of a hit as the original was in the US outside of the UK, but in the UK, it got up there quite a bit. Personally, I think both of these songs are great versions of the song, but I definitely slide one way on this argument. So as far as the original version goes, the King Harvest version, what do you like about the original, Lauren?
Well, I think I'm kind of programmed by default to like this kind of song. It's early 70s soft rock, which is very much my wheelhouse. I have had this on multiple playlists throughout my life. This is just like a go-to feel-good kind of happy song. And kind of now that I have that backstory from you, like, yeah, it is like a celebration of life kind of thing. And I've always sort of felt that. And I just kind of like the light tickling keyboards that kind of start it. It's just, it sounds sparkly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And first of all, the light rock, the keyboards in the early 70s, all of those things do not surprise me that's why you like this song. But I've always instantly was drawn to the lyrics. I just love how carefree that the lyrics are, and they just sound like it's almost like a Dancing in the Streets type of thing by Motown for me. Like it's just like, hey, we don't ever sit around and worry about things. Like we all are just having a good time, right? Like life could be if people weren't constantly searching the internet for things to be mad about, right?
Yeah.
So I always loved that in the first place. Then when I read that story about like the circumstances under which he wrote the song, it's like, I often say in my real life, like when I see faux outrage online, I often think, oh man, what if that was something to really be outraged about, right? And here's an example of a person who had one of the worst things that can happen to you happen, and then this is their response. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, even if I hated the production on the original, or I hated the vocal take or whatever, just knowing that, I would be like, well, this gets a lot of points.
Oh, for sure. And I think I'm not tipping my hand here at all, really. Well, I might be, but I think a lot of what this cover battle is going to come down to, like, which one you heard first, because the spirit of the song is the spirit of the song, and they both are totally faithful to the spirit of the song.
For sure. I totally agree. For me, another thing I like about the original is I love how light and bouncy it is. Like, you don't get a lot of songs where, like, we've talked about on this show a ton about like, oh, that song doesn't mean what you think it means, just because it's light and bouncy. Like this song, if you had given me the instrumental for this and asked me to, what's that song about? I feel like I would have come somewhat close.
Yeah.
To what the song is about.
This version sounds like what it feels like to blow on a dandelion.
That's exactly correct. Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep. I can't even try to put it better than that. That's true. So as far as Toploader's cover goes of the song, so there's a lot to like here, in my opinion. And one thing, the first thing that sticks out to me is the production on the cover. I feel like in some ways, doesn't it sound like the cover was recorded before the King Harvest version?
In some ways. Yeah. Now you have to realize I very quickly prepared for battle for this, but my armor is on. So I'm processing what you're saying here, like in the moment. But yeah, I can see that. I can see that. It a lot of the production of it sounds like it could have happened before 1972.
Yeah, like the almost it's not exactly a wall of sound, but it's got like a Phil Spector-ish sound to it. Not just the percussion, which is my next point. I love the percussion on the cover. Love it. And there's almost very stepping dangerously close to a drum breakdown in the middle of it as well, which we all know.
You love.
I love a drum breakdown. But the actual percussion in the song, I think, is just perfect for what it is. And then the last thing that I have that I love about the cover is, and this is such a contrasting thing, because I just went on about how much I love the light-hearted feel of the original. I love that the vocal on the cover is like a little meaner take.
Okay, I think what you're trying to get at here is aggressively happy, right?
Yeah. Well, and what I wrote in my exact notes is I like that the vocals are a little more aggressive, but yeah, they're just as happy.
Yeah.
They're every bit as happy. Like he's like, I feel like the original is the guy telling you how he feels. And the cover sounds to me like this guy would very much like you to feel that way too.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an early 2000s take on that happy feeling.
Yeah, that could have something to do with it too, the actual time that it was recorded. Yeah. So as far as you go, what are you, since you're newer to the cover than I am, I probably heard the cover not long after it was released. Somehow I came into it around in the early 2000s. So having not had that long with it, a year or so now, what do you think of the cover? Like, what do you like about it?
Well, I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of what you said, but like, I'm also a big fan of, Brit pop bands from that time. So it definitely also fits into things that I like. That kind of bigger sound, that aggressively happy kind of thing. And I can't help it. I am who I am. I have to put things in terms of dogs. And our dog, Troy, the Doberman, he's aggressively happy. Like, this is the Troy version of this song.
That's very
It's
true.
like, I want to play with you. I want to play with you. Come on, do it. And that's kind of what this is. And I like the energy of it. If the original is what it feels like to blow on one dandelion, this is what it feels like to like really aggressively blow on a fistful of dandelions.
Yeah. And if somebody is listening to this show and has only ever heard the original and you're like, oh, when this episode's over, I got to go check that out. When you mentioned just Britpop in general, it made me think, if you've ever heard the song 2 by Blur, that's the type of aggressive happiness we're talking about.
Yeah.
In the cover, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, I think that there's a lot to like about both of these. Like, this was a very hard battle for me because I don't remember which one I heard first, which is weird because usually for sure which one you've heard, before. And I don't remember ever, let me put it this way. I don't remember hearing the original a ton before I heard the cover. And then I remember absolutely loving the cover to where I played it like on repeat a lot.
Yeah.
So the cover must have just stuck with me more, for like right off the top. But we get into, when we cover these things, like, what is it that you like more, or why, or which one would you recommend and whatnot. So I'll answer this first. I mean, it's probably fairly obvious at this point which one I like more. I do like the Toploader version better, but I think that it comes down to the production for me. Like, there's nothing I dislike about the original, but if you were to say to me, hey, I'm going to put on Dance in the Moonlight, which version would you like me to put on? It would, my answer 10 times out of 10 would be Toploader. Like, there would be no point where I would be like, well, make sure to throw the King Harvest version in, because I feel like maybe, and the way you described it kind of helps me some. I feel like I am also aggressively happy.
Yes.
And like, I feel like I probably identify more with the vocal take on the second one. But, and this is so weird because usually this doesn't happen to me, but in doing research for this episode, finding out the hows and whys of it being written in the first place really put a lot of points in the column of the original for me. And actually, and even just delivering the message in that way, like, I mean, this could be Roger Waters' area. This could be like delivered cynically, like, we could be dancing in the moonlight, but
we're not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just not. It's just like delivered in the hopeful way that the person meant for it to be. Right. So for me, I would easily pick the Toploader version, but this is so close. For me, this is probably one of the closest cover battles we've had so far.
Oh, that's good. I mean, it's close for me too, even though I don't have a lot of a long-term experience with the Toploader song. The King Harvest version, I can't remember not having heard this song.
Right.
And I listened to it so much. Like I said, I'm pretty sure in high school I put this song on like mixtapes for people.
Yeah.
And
what's funny? I'm not kidding you. You know how I heard the Toploader version? Someone made me a mix CD. And I was like, as soon as it started, because it's the same melody, as soon as it started, I was like, I totally know that I know this, but not this version. And then when it kicked in, I was like, oh, this is that song. Like, and I knew I'd heard it before, but by the end of it, I was like, well, this is getting repeated. But literally the way I came into the Toploader version is someone made me a mix CD with it on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So what were you asking me?
Well,
one
which
is my
one's your favorite and why? And I feel like this is a foregone conclusion. And let me try and answer for you, and you tell me if I'm right. You like the original better, if for no other reason, the jaunty keys at the beginning.
Stop it. That's literally what I was going to say. But I do very much like the, I think each version has its place, you know? Absolutely does. Like, I don't think I wouldn't play both versions at the same kind of party. Yeah,
I could see that being fair as well, which we'll get into that. You're kind of going into the recommendation territory, but like for you personally, if I was going to put on, like, you know, if I go out right now and say, Alexa, play Dancing in the Moonlight, which version are you hoping is going to start? I'm hoping for King Harvest. You're hoping for Jaunty Keys. I am hoping for Jaunty Keys. And the first time you played the Toploader one for me, I remember in my brain, I was like, oh, this is that song I like, but it's a lot of it. Yeah, it is a lot of it. It is a lot of it. So we're going to get into which version would you recommend and why. So now give me a general, because I feel like you have situations you would play different versions in, but if you just walked up to someone and recommended that they listen to Dancing in the Moonlight, you would say, listen to Dancing in the Moonlight by... Yeah, today in the year of our Lord 2022, I would honestly probably say the Toploader song, Toploader version. That's one I'd probably recommend. Mostly because you feel like people would be... I think people would get that one more. For as much as I love the King Harvest one, it feels a little... It is way more dated than the Toploader one. So if somebody who'd never heard any version of this song before, I would absolutely recommend Toploader. I also would tell everybody to listen to Toploader. And on these two questions, I have been split very often. Like I've said, I very much favor this version, but I would recommend the other for this, that, or the other version. This, I feel like the King Harvest version of this song, when it starts, it ramps up through the verse into the chorus where it finally gets really moving. The Toploader version of this song, you hear the intro, and then as soon as we get it, I mean, that song is off and running. Yeah. And so, again, this might be because I'm an old, but I feel like with a younger generation, if someone was to be like, oh, you know, I'm gonna recommend this song, they would need it to kick in faster. Probably. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how I feel about it. This is so hard because, again, this is easily one of the closest cover battles that we've done, at least for me, because I don't have any aversion to either version of this. No version of version. Right. I have no version of an aversion to either version. Correct. Yes. That's funny. It is. Okay, my brain had to go here because now that I'm thinking about it, because I said earlier, I was like, you wouldn't play both versions at the same kind of party because you would dance completely differently to each version. Yeah, I feel like the original version of Dance in the Moonlight requires more of a Carlton-esque. Yeah, and that's literally what I'm doing. Yeah. And I don't even know if you could really like dance per se to the Toploader version of it. You just be aggressively moving your head. Yeah. I feel like let me say this, and I don't believe I've ever used this phrase in my life up till now, but I feel like the Toploader version is a whole vibe, like on its own. Oh, it's a vibe. It's a mood. Yeah. It's a whole thing on its own. So, but I know this episode is a little bit shorter than the usual episodes that we have. And trust me when I tell you, I am really grateful to Dayton for even trying tonight with all of his internet issues. And, I would have loved to have had him on this episode. But again, we will have him on an episode here again sooner than later because he does bring a lot of great insight into the discussion of music. And so in the meantime, if you want to check out what I'm talking about, go check out the Docking Bay 77 podcast, and he will be on this show. And another thing I'm really grateful for is that I had quick and easy access to a person who also was able to hold this episode over. And I really, really, I know you're my fiance and all, but I really do appreciate the fact that you were able to just go, like, I know the listeners don't have any inside info on this, but literally this was like, hey, can you come pitch it on this episode? And she was like, yep, and literally paused Animal Crossing. That's true. To come in and sit down. And so everything that you were hearing on this episode, albeit shorter than the usual one, is all very much off the top of both of our heads. And I greatly, greatly appreciate you doing that. Thank you. You're welcome. If you'd like to hear Lauren talk more about Weird Al, and if you'd like to hear Lauren talk about beer, as well why she's gone and mashed up both of those things into one thing for you with the Beard Al podcast.
It's true.
What are people going to hear if they go over there?
Well, they're going to hear me and my brother John talking about beer and Weird Al. You've heard me say it before. We pair a beer with a Weird Al song like one might pair a fine wine with a meal. And we have all sorts of fun conversations about that.
If you are listening to our show and, for whatever reason you haven't heard Lauren or John on here before and you want to go check out their show and you like what you hear on ours, I would direct you to recently, the day after Thanksgiving, an episode came out where I was on their show talking about Weird Al's song Fat. And so it was me over there on their playground having fun. So if you like what you hear on this show and you want to check theirs out, you might want to start with that episode. And then there's a whole plethora of other Beard Al episodes out there for you to check out. Also, if you want to see Lauren and I, you can go to the Infectious Groove music channel on YouTube. And we have 3 videos every week on that channel. And 2 of the 3 are usually both of us talking our way through the ins and outs of a whole bunch of different music things. It's all totally different content than what we have here on the podcast. So check that out as well. Greatly appreciate the listener base that we have and the podcast community that we have that pitches in and helps out with things like this. Next week on the program, all things being equal, we are going to have the boys from the Itch Rocks podcast joining us, and Michelle will return to her seat as well. And guess what? It's going to be an album review. And whose pick is it? It's my pick. It's my pick for an album review. I'm really excited. So you have that to look forward to next week. Our thanks again to Dayton for trying out. We'll get you back in soon. Our thanks again to Lauren for helping us out here on this week's episode. And like we always say about this time, without music, life would be a mistake. Bye.
The Infectious Groove Podcast is hosted by Russ Robinson, Kyle Wimple, and Michelle Koselecki. Produced and edited by Russ Robinson. Intro and outro music composed by Chris Kimmel. Recorded with a Rode Podcaster Pro and Rode Pod mics.